So this video is going to be primarily concerned with exporting assets or models out of Maya and into Unity. And there's a few things on our checklist we need to go through, such as organizing your Maya scene, to resetting your transformations, making sure your pivot points are set up correctly, and actually setting up your units of measurement from Maya to Unity. So I'm going to go ahead and focus on getting my scene cleaned up. It's kind of messy right now. There's a lot of things just floating around in my outliner, and I have just a lot of layers that, made sense when I was modeling, but maybe won't make too much sense right now. So I'm going to go ahead and just uh, ungroup everything in my outliner. All right, I did that. I want to do that, and I'll show you how I did that. So I'm just going to select all of my things. I'm going to expand finish group, select everything in the outliner, middle mouse click and drag, and just drag it into some empty space. And then I can just go to the finish group and get rid of that. Um, I'm also going to select everything here. Oh, selected the wrong thing. Remove selected objects. Actually, now I'm going to just go through my layers and clean those up. So I'm going to remove all the selected objects from each group. And then I can go to delete unused layers because nothing was in those layers. And now I have a fresh layer channel box right here. And I'm going to make some new layers. I'm going to create an empty layer, and I'm going to call this ready for export layer. And I'm going to make a new one called not ready layer. All right, great. So I'm going to take everything in my scene now. I'm just going to select everything. Well, actually, you know what? I'd rather work in groups. So I'm going to make a new group in my outliner. I'm just going to click some empty space in my outliner window. I'm going to press Control G to make a null group. I want to say not ready group. And I'm just going to put everything, middle mouse click and drag into not ready group. And I'm going to make another Control G group. Oh, I got put right there. Yeah, a little bit of a. All right, I call this ready group. And then I'm going to assign these groups to my layers. So with ready group selected, I'm going to right click on ready for export layer. And with not ready group selected, I'm going to right click there. So now I have full scene control. I know where everything is, and I have layers that can help me hide and make visible different objects. All right, so we got our scene organized. So I'm going to go ahead and save this real quick. I'm just going to save over '07. I didn't need that one. Um, yeah, so, oh yeah, here we have our grid. Our grid's really small right now because we're not in meters. So we're going to go ahead and make sure we're in meters. We're going to go to Windows, Settings and Preferences, Settings, and set it to meters, and hit Save. There we go. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to tackle my building. Now, I had went ahead and built my building all the way. And in my mind, I was going to say, you know what? I'm just going to build this building inside of Maya and export the whole building. But that really limits us to maybe in the future we want to make another building of the same kind of materials, the same kind of damaged parts and whatnot. And to do that, we have to go back into Maya. But what if, you didn't want to go into Maya? Or what if you just were a level designer with no Maya experience? Well, then that would be pretty hard. So what we're going to do is we're going to break this building up and we're going to chop it up and make it modular. So I'm going to, okay, let me show you what I just did. So with my building selected, test stucco wall, I'm going to middle mouse click and drag it out of my not ready group. And since we have our groups and layers set up, I can make not ready group invisible. So now all I'm focusing on is my stucco wall. So we're going to extract a few different meshes and pieces out of this guy right here. The first thing, and that's obvious that we're going to extract, is just one of these little patches of stucco. So I'm going to go to face mode, right click, go to face mode, and select just one face. Then I'm going to go to edit mesh, and we're going to hit the extract button. You'll notice now that in the outliner, my stucco wall object has become a group, and now we have two separate objects. One object is the actual patch I just made. The other object is what was left over. So what I'm going to do is pull this little guy out of the group, and I'm going to call this wall stucco patch 001. All right. And for right now, I'm just going to leave him as it is. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to extract a corner here. Remember when we spent all that time beveling this edge to get it nice and soft so it doesn't look completely artificial and computer generated? Well, we're going to go ahead and extract a corner so we can build our corners inside of Unity as well. So we're just going to select all these faces here, edit mesh, extract, and I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to pull this little corner piece out. So now I have my patch, my corner. We'll call this wall stucco corner 001. All right, and now I'm left with the rest of my building. And what we're going to do is we're going to go in and we're going to extract our damaged bit. So to do that, I'm going to go ahead. I only need to extract these three, so I'm going to simplify this model and get rid of some stuff here, just to make sure, I'm not selecting any excess faces. Now I can look straight on at my damaged bits and just drag a box around it all. All right, that's looking good. Edit mesh, extract. All right, and I'm just going to go ahead and do that for all my damaged parts right here, making sure I get every single face here. We don't want to leave one out on accident. So make sure you're getting every face. And we'll go to edit mesh, extract, and let's do the same thing up here. Making sure I get all the faces, edit mesh, extract. And then I can just delete everything that's left over. And I have all the building blocks of making my building now. All right. One thing I want to note is we're getting some smoothing errors over here on our corner pieces. So what we're going to do is we're going to go in and adjust our normal angles real quick to make sure that they're rocking pretty good. And what am I talking about right here? Well, if we look at this wall from an extreme angle, you can see how it gets black towards the corner here. That's not good. It looks good everywhere else, but that's because our edge normals are not hardened right there. So we're going to go into edge mode, and what we want to do is we want to keep the damage edges soft, and we want to keep all the rest of the edges around it hard. So I'm just going to select the border edges like so, and I'm going to go to Mesh Display, Harden Edge. And now we still have the shading area display. So what's going on here? So I'm going to try another method here. I'm going to select all the edges here. I'm going to make them all soft. You can do that by going to Soften Edge right there. And now all our edges are soft here. And then I'm going to double click around the outside of my mesh here. And I'm going to harden those. And there we go. It feels like our blackness is gone. All right, great. And I don't see that up in here too much. So I think all of our pieces are good. Now what we need to do is we need to take all of our pieces here and we need to ungroup them somehow. So, is there a way we can do that? Yeah, I think there is. If we select all of our meshes and go to edit and go to ungroup, can't ungroup leaf transformation. We might just have to do that by hand. So we're going to expand this group. We got a lot of just excess groups up in there. So I'm going to select each one of these. I'm going to pull them out. I'm going to get rid of that group that was right there. So now we need to name these guys. And let's keep with our same naming convention as wall stucco. So it's a wall, it's a stucco, it's not a corner. Let's say destroyed 001. And I'm going to double click that, copy it, and I'm just going to name the rest of them the same. Let's see, wall stucco destroyed 003. So now I have my building chopped up, named correctly. Now I need to position them on the X and the Z and Y axis at the 0 point. All right. Unity is very particular on where our models are placed inside of our scene view inside of Maya. If I was to export this little patch of wall into Unity as is, Unity is going to go ahead and make the pivot point exactly where we see now. The pivot point in Unity is going to be our origin point or our 0 point inside of Maya. So if we can position all of our assets in relation to our 0 point in Maya, we'll go ahead and set up a nice pivot point in Unity, and we don't have to worry about all that. So what we're going to do is we're going to hold down the D for delta on your keyboard, D for delta, V is in vector. So what we're doing, I've done this a few times, I just want to explain it one more time, is when I hold D, we get this new looking little toolbar up here. And basically what that's doing is it's allowing us to reset our pivot point in a rotational way and in a translation. All right, so I'm going to undo that. So when you hold down D key, I can now move this object's pivot point, like so. So I'm going to hold down D. Now I'm going to hold down V for vector, so I can snap it to a vertex. See, we're in vertex snap mode. So that allows me to snap the pivot point of any model, any vertex I want. Now we're going to hold down X for X-ray and just snap it to the center of the grid there. And you'll notice now in my channel box, I have some dirty numbers here. It's negative 0.5. So the next step we're going to do for our asset here is we're going to go to Modify, Freeze Rotation, and now our channel box is zeroed out and it's looking pretty good. So we're going to do that for the next, the 4 other objects we have for this building here. And this is going to be interesting because I'm on a corner right now. Where am I going to set the pivot point for this? Well, it's kind of up to you. What I think what I'm going to do is set the pivot point on the outside edge here. Oh, not there. That way, all I have to do is just snap to a patchwork. And that just so happens to snap to the center of the grid as well. So I'm going to leave it as is. Go to Modify, Freeze Transformations. And now I'm going to do that for the rest of these assets. So I'm just going to go ahead and work through that real quick. It might be a little tough to find your handles on some of these. So if you ever find that your handles are just, your move handles are just who knows where, you can always go to Modify and Center Pivot. That'll bring the handles closer to your object. So then you can snap them a little bit, snap the pivot point a little bit easier. And then we're just going to snap all of our objects to the center of our grid here. And I'm going to select both of those, go to Modify, center the pivots on both of those. So now I'm just kind of wrangling up all my assets here. I'm snapping the vertices right there, snapping it to the origin point on my axis. And you might have trouble sometimes getting this because you might accidentally grab the rotational handles, but don't worry about that. Because when you reset and freeze transformations, it'll reset that as well. Now I have my building set in the middle of my game scene. And I can select all of my objects here and go to Modify, Freeze, Modify, Reset. And now all my building pieces are properly named and properly placed on my origin point. So I have nice pivot points inside of Unity. So I'm going to grab all these guys and I'm going to stick them in the ready group. And since my ready group is tied to my ready for export layer, I can turn the visibility on and off with them quite easily. So now I just have to grab the next thing over here, my not ready group, middle mouse click and drag it out, and it becomes visible. And this one's already kind of set up pretty good. I want the pivot points kind of already in the center here, and it's good to go. So I'm going to go ahead, make sure it's named pretty good. The naming conventions I like to use is, first of all, what is it? It's a window. How did I have it named before? Metal, boarded red metal window. All right, that's a mouthful, so let's just keep it simple. Window, red, boarded, 01. That's a pretty good description of what it is. Red frame, boarded up, it's a window, and it's a wrap. Let's go ahead and middle mouse click and drag it into ready. All right, so let's get my door mesh next, pull it out of there. And originally I thought that I wanted my pivot point to be at the front of the door, but I want to change that. I'm going to put the pivot point right at the bottom back of my door here. Now I'm going to readjust it to the center of my axis. That messes up my channel box right here a little bit. And this is our channel box in the top right corner. This is what tells us our translations and everything in our layer window. And I'm going to go to Modify, Freeze Transformations, Door. Let's call this something a little bit better. Door Red 001. So that's our red door. And we're going to put it in our ready group. These names we're going to be giving our assets and where they're going to show up inside of Unity. So we need to start thinking about what we're naming our assets even before we get into Unity. All right. So what is this P plane? This must just be some random plane I had left over, right? Well, actually, it's actually a texture I put inside my texture sheet here. I have a little patch of black right here. If we go to my reference picture and bring up level 01, you'll see that our windows just have a black background. So I'll be able to go inside of Unity and scale that plane you just saw right behind my windows so we can kind of create that black background. We don't have to worry about modeling the inside of our building here. So that's what this little plane is going to be for. So let me minimize all this stuff. And I'm going to go ahead and maybe rotate it up since it'll mostly be for windows here. And since it's just kind of a nebulous thing I'm going to be floating in inside of geometry, I don't really have to worry about a pivot. So I'm just going to keep it as is and just keep it as a meter unit because I'm going to be scaling it and whatnot inside of Unity. And I'm just going to call this black patch 001. And we're going to go to modify, freeze, modify, reset. It's good to go. Now let's drop it in our ready group. Now let's tackle our wood here. I want to bring up a plank wood hole. So our wood's going to pose a unique challenge because it is beveled. And you see how I'm having a tough time rotating my camera around my wood here? Well, we can solve that by, if I want to focus in on these vertices here on the edge, I can select these vertices, and if I press F, the camera now is centered around those vertices. You frame in or you zoom in on them. So the thing I have to think about now is where am I going to put the pivot points on these beveled pieces of wood? They don't exactly have just one vertex in the corner here. They have, a few here. All right. So I need to figure out what way we're facing. So I'm going to make my ready visible again. So we're facing this way, going towards this way. So I got my origin of my window here. I think I'm going to make the pivot point of this block of wood. Let's see. How should we do it? I think I'm going to make it this bottom vertex right there. The front left, very bottom vertex. So I'm going to see how I'm grabbing the rotation handles on accident? Do that. So we'll do that. And you'll notice now my rotational handles are pointing downwards. That's easily fixed with a freeze and reset like so. Or actually, I guess the rotational handles aren't. If you ever find yourself messing up with the rotational handles when you're trying to move your pivot, just do a quick undo because you don't want those rotational directions to be all messed up. So the front bottom vertex, we're going to snap it right to the center of the grid. And we're going to keep this piece of wood here because we're going to match our orientation of this wood to all the rest of our wood in our scene view here. So let me bring up the outliner. Wood plank hole, that's a good name. And let's bring out the wood plank open and see it's just kind of wherever it is, who knows. What I want to do now is I want to make sure my pivot point is on the open side so I can just snap my open pieces easily. So we got this going on. We wanted the front right. So my pivot point's on the wrong side there. Let me zoom in around so much. I'm going to snap it on the front right there. And hopefully when I snap it to the center of the grid here, they're going to line up just perfectly. And now you can see they're kind of overlapping one another, and that's what you want to see. All right. So here's my cap. And I really want my pivot point to be on this open piece of this wood, but I also want my wood to be oriented. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scale to -X. So I can go ahead and just have my pivot point already there. There's my open cap right there. And cube 001. Here's a piece of wood that I just randomly made, like a little damaged piece of wood to create, maybe a broken window looking thing. So I'm going to move its pivot point. Let me zoom in on those vertices. All right. I'm in some kind of weird mode right now. Hold D, make sure we don't touch that rotational. Now we can, and now you can see how I've got my wood all orientated right in the center of my grid. They're all kind of overlapping one another. So I'm going to grab all my wood now and go to modify, freeze, modify, reset. And I guess I need to call this, I didn't really have this wood name, so make sure we do that. And we'll call this broken, wood plank broken. So now all my wood's ready to go. I'm going to drop it into the ready group. So really, all my objects here are ready for export. They're all lined up on the center of my grid. The next step we're going to do is we're going to take off that texture. We want all of our models to be grayed out with that Lambert 01 inside of Unity, or inside of Maya, so we don't get a texture imported with our FBX. We want it to be as milk toast or plain toast as possible. So select all of my objects here, my scene. You can see them all selected here. And we're going to right click on Lambert 1 and just assign initial values. So no textures are attached. That's good. I'm just going to do another double check. I'm going to select all my objects, freeze, reset transformations, make sure my channel box and my handles are right in the 0 here. Let's go to File and let's optimize scene size real quick. And that'll get rid of any excess layers or groups in your outliner, or we go to our hypershade. It will even get rid of our texture we were using earlier. So that's just a nice clean way to get rid of any excess things that aren't being used that might gunk up our exportation process. All right. So now is the process of exporting these guys one at a time. I don't think Maya has a built-in multi-export tool. I have a script that allows me to export everything in the outliner as an FBX, but I'm not going to show you the script. I'm going to show you how we do it manually so you know the right way to do it. So we have this ready group here, and I don't want anything in my outliner group anymore because I'm really about to start exporting the stuff. So again, we're going to ungroup this, and I'll show you how I did that again. So I selected everything in my scene here where I can shift select everything in my outliner, hold middle mouse button, click and drag into empty space, delete that ready. So now our outliner just consists of all of our assets we want to export. So the first thing I'm going to do is double click on my first model in my hierarchy and press Control C, and we're going to store that name of the asset to our clipboard. That'll be important in a second. The next thing I want to make sure is that FBX is activated inside of Maya. So what we're going to have to do is go to Windows, Settings and Preferences, Plugin Manager, and at the very bottom of our window here, we have an FBX Maya. Make sure that's loaded up, okay? Mine was already loaded, so make sure that check mark is checked. That'll give us the option to export as an FBX. Next, we're going to go to File. We're going to go to Export Selection, and we pick, normally you'd probably be on something like, I don't know, Maya ASCII. Hopefully you're saving in Maya ASCII. Don't ever save in Maya binary. The reason for that is Maya ASCII saves your scene files as text files, and that allows you to go in and edit your text files. So if you want to open up a 2012 scene or a 2010 scene inside of Maya, you can just make a few changes in your ASCII file, and you're not locked out of using newer files on older versions of Maya. That's just something I picked up along the way. If you're not doing .ma, start doing it now. It's the superior. They're larger files, but they're the most versatile, and they'll probably save in the future at some point. So we're going to select FBX Export, and we need to do one more option here. Let's go to File Type Specific Options. All right. So it's going to bring up these options right here. So we'll go to Advanced Options. We'll go to Units, And this will probably be checked automatic for you. We want to uncheck automatic, and we want to set it to centimeters. Don't ask me why. It's just the way Maya and Unity play with each other. That's how the conversion between the two programs work. But that step right here will ensure that if we import uh, our objects here, they're going to be within the meter scale inside of Unity. So with my file name here, I can just press Control V, and I'll paste the name of my asset in my outliner right here. So this is what we're going to call our FBX asset here, and make sure we're in a place where you want to save your assets. So I'm going to navigate to my Trojan project window. Trojan is the name of my game. So I have a folder called Assets Models, and this is where I'm saving all of my assets in my game. I already have a few up here stored. So I'm going to go ahead and call this wall stucco path. This is where I'm going to save it, export selection, and that's perfect. So I'm going to go through that step one more time with the second object in my outliner. So I'll double click, copy the name and the outliner, make sure it's still selected. I'll go to File, Export Selection. My units are set up good. Paste the name right there, make sure I'm in my folder I want to export it to, export selection. So I'm going to pause real quick and export everything out in my scene. Then I'll quickly show us how we can import it into Maya and start using it. All right, be right back while I export all these guys. Okay, I'm back. I got everything exported, and if I go to my assets models folder, you can see all of my assets I just exported. They should match up with my outliner right here. So now I'm going to quickly show us how we can import these into Unity. So I'm going to bring up my Unity scene here, and I'm still in my prototype scene or my blocking out scene. That's fine. We can just work in here for a little bit longer. So I'm going to actually select meshes here, my meshes folder. See, that's my editor and that's my standard assets. So there's nothing in meshes now, so this folder's empty. And I'm going to go to my assets models folder. I'm going to just drag and drop everything, and Maya will, Unity will import them all in, easy peasy. So a few things have happened. I got everything inside my meshes folder, but I also brought along this Lambert 01 from Maya. So I definitely want to delete that. So let's delete this materials folder that Unity makes for us. Next, let's select everything in my meshes scene, and that way we can set a few settings all at once here. All right, so we follow along here with the settings here in my inspector instead of Maya. We want to uncheck import blend shapes. We don't want to generate colliders. We'll do that on our own. We don't want to apply mesh colliders to everything in the game. And swap UVs. Nope. Generate light map UVs. Yeah, we definitely want to have light maps in the future. And, you know, the default options will be just fine for our needs right now. We're going to uncheck import materials, and now we're going to hit apply. And no animations, no rigs come along. Now all of our models are imported into Unity. All right, now why don't we go ahead and see if we can import our texture file. So inside of Photoshop, first I'm going to save my PSD by just hitting the save button. Now I'm going to go to save as, and my format, we're going to export our textures as PNGs. And let's just call this texture A. I'm going to save that as a PNG. No interlace options needed. Let it do its thing. And then we'll go to assets. And then I'm going to navigate. Let me bring up Unity first. Now I can go to my Trojan project. Texture map. There's my texture A texture I just saved. This is an old texture. I'll delete that real quick. And I'm going to drag and drop it into my textures folder, just like we did with my models. And for the most part, I think these settings will do just fine for right now. And why don't we go ahead and make a material inside of Unity. So in my materials folder that I made, I'm going to right click, I'm going to create. And by the way, if you don't have these folders, all you got to do is right click on assets. You can go to create folder, and it'll give you a new folder, test folder, and it'll show up right here in your assets outline. But we already have the materials folder, so I'm going to create material. Let's call this texture A map, and then single click on textures, drag and drop onto our beta, or if we didn't want to do that, we could just click on this little bullseye right here, and it'll bring up a window, and we can select our texture from there. All right, I'm going to go ahead and go to my material again, texture A material. I'm going to bring down the metallic and smoothness all the way to 0. I'm going to go to Save Project, Save Scene, and why don't we see our door in action that we made. Here's our door. Let's pull it out this way a little bit, and let's click and drag our texture onto it. We'll hit play, and there we go. That's our door for us. Notice how it's at a decent height. You know, I might change the height of my character controller. I think my character controller is a little too high. I can do that by just lowering a few things on here. There we go. And there's our door inside of our Unity scene. And then we can just build our building with all the assets we just created. So the next chapter or the next video, I'm going to show you how we can rebuild our building inside of Unity and make use of prefabs and make use of those modular pieces we spent so long creating so far. And after that video, that'll pretty much wrap up the basic modularity portion of the modeling videos here. Um, it's all been about making pieces and parts so we can later assemble them in Unity. So in the next video, let's finish it out and see how a modular level really comes together. All right, thanks.